I'll just like quickly introduce myself here, and then yeah, I handed out like a bunch of like items. Like I can literally talk about nothing that's on the paper, or if you have other questions, or I can just talk about the things that are on the paper. But I'm Jodie Robertson. I race here. I'm from Long Island here. I race as a professional triathlete. I do Ironman racing. This is my 10th year racing as a pro. I didn't start racing triathlon until I was like 30 years old, so I'm kind of a late start, so I'm jealous about you young guys who are already doing triathlon now. It's pretty cool, good for you. I came from a running background. I did a lot of running previous and just kept getting injured a lot, so fell into the whole like I need to cross train and fell in love with triathlon. So yeah, yeah, you can kick it off. I don't know, like, does people want to like ask questions? Do you want me to just start talking about some of the things I have here? Like, totally very cool. Yeah.
You answered my question. I was just going to ask what your background was. So,
yeah.
So it was running.
Yeah, my background was running. I qualified for the 2012 and the 2016 Olympic marathon trials, so I focused on the marathon. I raced in the 2012 trials, and then I didn't race in 2016 because I decided I was going to start transitioning into triathlon. I needed to invest some time into learning how to swim and bike more. So yeah, it was kind of like 2016 was the year that I kind of made that transition. I raced 2 triathlons as an amateur in 2015, and then got my pro card and started racing in 2016 as a pro. So yeah, that's kind of like my quick background on how
What's your favorite discipline out of the 3 now that you do all 3?
I don't know. I think it depends on the day what your favorite is, right? I think the beauty of triathlon is that like sometimes like one discipline is going well while the others aren't going so well. So basically the one that's going well is typically my favorite. No. I'm not very good at swimming, but there's a lot of room to grow in swimming, so that's kind of fun for me just to see like the challenge of becoming better. And like, I mean, you get better pretty quick at something you're not good at, so sometimes your weakness can be a lot of fun as well. Yeah, I can talk a little bit about some swim stuff. For me, I could swim, like I could get from one side of the pool to the other when I started triathlon, but I was by far like not a very good swimmer. You're laughing, my husband's laughing, because when I was a runner still, I did a lot of like, I would swim in the pool and cross-train and like aqua jog as cross-training, and like one day the lifeguard was basically like, "Are you okay in there?" She's like, "I think I can give you a swim lesson tomorrow because like you look like you're gonna drown basically like when you're swimming." So and then I had another friend I would like ride bikes with when I cross-trained, and before I even did triathlon, I told him, I was like, I'm going to be a pro triathlete one day. And I mean, I'd never raced a triathlon in my life. I was just like, I'm going to do that one day. And he's like, but you can't swim. And I was like, no, I'm going to, like, swear, I'm going to do it. Like, so yeah, I think like for me, the biggest thing about learning how to swim was just time on task. I mean, it's probably the hardest discipline to put time into because it takes so much time to get to the pool, to get into the pool, to like get to the pool during pool hours, to like all that stuff is like definitely time consuming. But I think the more times you get in the pool each week and the more time you touch water, it's like definitely like gonna improve your swimming no matter what. Like for me, focusing on one thing at a time has been really, really important. Like, there's so many things you can fix in swimming, and there's so many technical things you can do. So having somebody watch you and like just give you that like one thing to focus on, and you can't think about 10 things at once while you're swimming, you'll get nothing done and accomplish nothing. And then I think people think that like you pick one thing, you work on it for a week, and then you move on to the next. But that's not the reality of it. You like pick one thing and you work on it for 4 months, and then you like reflect on it, see if you're doing it better, and then maybe you pick the next thing you're going to work on. But I think it takes that long to fix one thing. You got some fast swimmers here, they can probably give you better swim tips than I could. For me, like in swimming, one of the biggest things has been just like not using the clock some days. If you're working on technical things, it's like the clock's not important, or if you're just going for like an easy swim, who cares what the clock says? Just like, I mean, don't get caught up in that kind of thing. It makes it a lot more enjoyable. I put one of my favorite swim workouts on there. If you have questions on it, you can
If you're not looking at the clock, you're just going for like a distance overall, or
like,
you're just really drilling whatever you're
I
trying
mean,
to work on that.
I could be doing a set, like I could just have an aerobic set that I'm doing where I'm doing like a ladder of like 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, back down, 4, 3, 2, 1, and they're all like aerobic. And I mean, I'll just count 5, 10, 15, 20 seconds rest in between, like in my head, and move on.
And you're just working on that ladder.
Yeah.
The clock.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So like for me, I'll just like, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm just swimming like straight through if I'm not using a clock. I'm just like not dependent on it. Or like I'll look at the clock and just be like, oh, 10 seconds rest, there was a 5 on the end, I'll start the next time I see a 5, you know, like that sort of thing. But I like literally couldn't tell you what the first number was or how long it took me. And like it's amazing how much if you just like tune it out, like you can just kind of forget about it, you know. It doesn't, if it's not important, it's not important.
Right.
So so that's like definitely for me has made getting in the pool, because the swimming too, when you're biking and running, I think it's harder to be as like, especially from a non-swimmer, it's harder to be like super consistent in the pool. Like you're not gonna like be swimming your best every day. So like going in there with a lot of fatigue and knowing like neuromuscularly like things are maybe just not like firing as well as you'd want them to. I think it's like nice to just be like, oh, I'm just enjoying my swim today and I'm still accomplishing what I need to accomplish, and it doesn't have to be fast or speedy, and who knows what the time was. So yeah. But that's a little bit about swim. Anyone have any questions? Yeah.
So if you're coming up to a sprint or a triathlon, is your thought process that you should, okay, I'm just going to book that sprint 6 months from now and train to it, or do you train and say I'm ready for the sprint? What would you?
Like,
I've heard two theories of that. You know what? I've heard just go book the sprint and find a way to work towards it, or work towards something when you feel at a certain level, then book the sprint or whatever.
I think it depends on like your personal mental space, right? Like I think it depends what motivates you. If you need to register for a race in order for like to be motivated to get out every day and train, then like go for it. But some people just like are like, well, I don't want to go if I'm not like ready to race. I mean, for me personally, I'd rather register like the day of and not commit in advance. But I mean, that's just my mentality. Like I will become stressed about something that I don't need to become stressed about, like if I think about it too far in advance. So for me personally, I would wait till the last minute, but that's not the right answer. Like I don't think there is a right answer for that. I think it's really like what motivates you. And for some of these races, the reality is you have to book it in advance, you know, like if I qualified for the World Championships in the end of last year, and like, so I know I'm racing that, like, I can't just like, I mean, I guess I could not book like my travel, you know, but I mean, like, I'm not deciding that last minute. I mean, so for races like that, like if you're doing a championship race, you have to figure out a way to like mentally like know you're doing that and getting there kind of thing. But yeah, so I think you can go either way for sure.
Question.
Yeah.
Do you guys as pros have to let them know at the race you qualify if you're going to do it, or can you decide later in the season?
No, we have to let them know if we're doing it.
Okay, so they have how many spots to have at the
Yeah,
races.
so we have to either like accept or decline our spot. I mean, like essentially I could accept my spot and then not go.
Right.
But yeah, so.
Cool.
Yeah, no, you have to, just like same as age groupers. I think like.
But age groupers have to pay.
Yes, we don't. Ours is included in our membership fee. So I guess for us,
they need to know. Right?
Yeah, for us, like the accepting has probably a little less weight on it, because you're not dishing out a lot of money. Yeah. So yeah.
What's your advice on like swimming from a pool to open water in a race?
So for me, I have found, I mean, and this is somebody who's a non-swimmer, so somebody who like swims, we should ask Mateo because he swims a lot, so he should answer this question on the flip side and see if it's the same answer as me. So I found that the more I swim open water, actually like the slower I get. I just get like lazy in open water. My swimming's not focused, like swimming interval, like I think swimming in open, you need to have the experience of swimming in open water, but the reality for me is like, to think I'm gonna do a workout in open water is like, not like it's not gonna happen. Like I'm way more focused on technique and like what I'm doing if I'm in the pool. So like yes, I mean I've gone into races especially in like April where I haven't swam open water a single time before I've gone there. Now I'm not like uncomfortable in the open water or like panicky about it, so like that's not a concern. I think if that was like if you had a comfort level that you needed to address, I think that's a different like issue. But if you're comfortable in open water, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people I know purely like pool swim and maybe like a little bit open water. What do you, Mateo, from the
Same
swim?
exact thing.
Right.
Maybe Ryan can test this. Maybe get open water like once a year outside of races. And
Yeah.
it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, I don't think I swam open. I mean, if I'm at a race venue,
Mm-hmm.
I will. I don't even actually like. Sometimes I will. Sometimes I won't. It depends. Like sometimes I will hit
If
the
there's a
pool.
pool, I'll go to the pool.
Yeah.
It's
mhm,
more
so-
structured, like you said.
Exactly.
You can get everything you need to get done.
Yeah, I think, and it's just a little bit more predictable, a little bit more like reliable on what you're accomplishing. Like sometimes I've gone open water and been like, what did I even do? Like I don't even know what I did. Like because if it's choppy, like I just think circumstances that are out of your control. So yeah, that's a great question. But yeah, so mostly pool swimming. Yeah, but like I said, if you don't have any experience in open water, then I think that's valuable for you to make sure you like have that comfort level. For sure. Any other questions? I can keep rolling through the paper.
I have one that's maybe a little personal in a sense. What does your like weekly structure look like? Are you like a 7-day, 9-day? Do you have like the same workouts on like Wednesday and Thursday and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I work a full-time job. I teach elementary band. So
nice.
yeah, so I like this isn't like my livelihood. But yeah, so basically like I'm doing it just like, I mean, if you're going to school or working, like I'm doing it the same way you are, like getting up early, doing a workout in the morning, coming home, doing a workout in the evening, booking long hours on the weekend, like it's just the same thing as everybody else. Yeah, I typically, like, I'm doing a workout in the morning, workout evening most days of the week. I do repeat like weeks a lot, like I will do the same week over and over again, probably in like a month block, like very similar weeks, like working on something. Yeah, I previously have worked with coaches all of my career until February, so I'm like new to doing it on my own now. So kind of just figuring out on my own a little bit with a lot of the stuff I've learned over 10 years. I'm kind of enjoying that like journey of like creating a bit of my own structure with like what I know has worked for me and what hasn't worked for me in the past. So yeah, so I definitely am not afraid to like repeat weeks over and over, but I think would say that the weeks definitely build a lot throughout, like whether you're building on volume, whether you're building on intensity, like so I might do like the same workout from one week to the next, but like if there's 10 intervals in the first week, there might be 12 intervals in the next week. Like if I'm doing a run, like on this paper I put like one of my favorite run workouts is like half-mile repeats. I don't do them on like a track or anything. I don't even like, I mean like I'll just go run like a 10-mile loop and do like half-mile repeats while I'm like running the 10-mile loop like on the road somewhere. But I'll just be like the first week I'll do 10, and the next week I'll do 12, and the next week I'll do 14, and the next week I'll do 16, and then I'll take a week off, and then I'll like, yeah, so, and I'll probably build that for like a 6-week block or something. Like I've gotten up to pretty high volume on that like workout, but yeah, so
Nice.
that's kind of like, I could do that. There's some workouts that I could do for a long length of time, and I
Yeah.
know benefit me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not everybody's like that. Some people like to change things up a bunch, but I'm not one to like mind doing things on repeat. If they work, they work.
Nice. Yeah.
So I don't think the training has to be like anything crazy, like, or anything like surprising, or like it's just putting in the time on task and putting in the work. I mean, there's plenty of days too, like where I could be planning on doing that half-mile workout, and I had a long day at work, and then I get out there and I'm like, well, that's not happening. I'll just run 10 miles today instead, you know? So I think being flexible with that, like especially like going to school all day or working a job all day, you have to like look at kind of like the big picture and be like, oh, well, that workout was great plan, but that's not happening today. Yeah, like I think on this past week on like Thursday, like I had like some high like 1 minute intervals planned on the bike, and it was just like not happening after a long day of work. But I was like, oh, I can like modify what I like have and just ride a little easier and more aerobic, and then the next day was like ready to do
Whatever the
more
workout
intense
is.
workout.
That's nice to hear from a pro, you know,
Yeah.
especially for us, because this morning I had a terrible bike ride.
Yeah.
But I just kind of sat there. I was like, let me just put the time in.
Yeah.
And it's nice to hear from pros.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, and I think especially like working and like, I mean, you're not like just spending all your time like napping and sleeping all day, you know. Like over the summer when I am not working a full-time job, but yeah, like it's a lot simpler, you know. I can attest to that. Like I can like go to the pool in the morning, even if I want to meet friends for the 6 a.m. swim, I can meet friends for the 6 a.m. swim, but then I can come back, have my second breakfast, and go take a nap, you know, like, that's a great summer, like, thing, but it's a novel 2-month experience, you know? So, I mean, yeah, but I mean, I think you have to, like, sometimes that balance of, like, having something outside of triathlon is really important, and I think people might construe it as, like, a bad thing that you have another, like, commitment, but I think it can be a really good thing, because when you do triathlon, it's fun and focused and important to you, and then when you're done, there's something else that's fun and focused and important for you. So, yeah. I have this bike workout on here. This is not a bike workout from me, but it's a bike workout from David Tilbury Davis, one of my previous coaches. But I love this workout. I think it's like a fun one because it's like a combination of like strength work and biking. So basically, the whole workout is like you just warm up on your bike, and this workout can be as short or as long as you want it, depending upon like how long you want to warm up. I'd say the main set's like 30 minutes long or so by the time you do everything. So basically, you could make it like an hour workout or like less by the time you warm up and cool down. But the whole concept is that you are doing squats, and you're kind of doing them, I do them with like a weight vest and weights that I have at home, and you can do a set of squats, and then you hop on your bike and you do an interval. Do a set of squats, hop on your bike, do an interval. Do a set of squats, hop on your bike and do an interval. So there's like 6 rounds of it, and like they basically like each round increases with weight. Yeah, I don't know if it like, so I'll explain just a little bit of what it says there, so then you could probably like figure out the rest of it if I explain like one set. So like for set 1, it says you're gonna do 24 times like a half squat. A half squat is like thinking like top of the pedal stroke. You don't have to like come down like full squat like some people do. And you're using like a fairly light weight, and then you jump on your bike for like 2 minutes, like a moderate effort of like 80 to 85% of like your threshold, or just 80 to 85% effort. I tried to put percentages on there, like, so people could just kind of gauge like where they were at. And then you just can do like 2+ minutes, super easy. You can decide how long the rest in between is. You could ride your bike, you could just stand there, you could do whatever you want. It's like totally your choice how you rest and recover. And then like the second set, you do like a little less squats, like 18 squats, but then you're adding like a little bit more weight onto this. So like as you do less in the squats, you're adding more weight and making it heavier. And then you hop on your bike and you do like 1 minute effort at like a VO2 effort, which is like pretty hard. Yeah, and then you kind of read through. The biggest thing is that the last set is like 30 to 50 squats at like a weight that like just lets you finish, but then you get on for 5 minute effort, but that is like a low cadence effort of like 65 to 75. So it's like kind of grinding it out, building some strength there. So I just think this is a really good one because it's just like a creative way to like build strength on the bike. You can do it at home. You could use weight for anything you want. You don't need like a weight vest or anything like that. You could be creative about like how you use weight or whatever. So yeah, but just something like different. And I found for me, like in biking especially, like going to the gym and like lifting and doing like some traditional like strength work with like leg presses and deadlifts and squats are like, that's how I got strong on the bike. I think like it just built a lot of strength, especially being like a runner. I didn't have like a lot of that heavy lifting background. So yeah, that was a big thing for me, like getting biking, get a bike fit, be comfortable. We were talking about this with, I forgot, John, right? Yeah, John. So what I was talking about was John when he came in, he was saying how biking was his least favorite thing because he wasn't comfortable. And like that's the reality of it. Like if you're not comfortable on your bike, it's like not going to be fun at all. So like getting a bike fit and like making sure that you're comfortable on your bike is like super important. Like I've gone for bike fits, but then I've also gone like aero testing too, and like I can attest that like when I've come back from aero testing, yeah, it might be like a little bit more aero, but if it's not comfortable, like you're not holding power there and you're not going any faster. So like, even if you're like, you have to find comfort like trumps like being aero or like anything else. So yeah, definitely like bike fit is a huge thing to make you want to get on your bike. Otherwise, it's just not enjoyable. And you're spending a lot of time there, more time than you are anyplace else. So, yeah. Any questions on some bike stuff? Anyone gonna go home and do some squats and ride their bike? Oh, okay. Running. One of my favorite things to do is run on trails. I think we like don't do this a lot because like it's, well, I mean, it could not be accessible for you. We do have some great trails in like our backyard, so that's like pretty accessible for us. But like I think it just builds a lot of strength and durability because like you're constantly like turning your ankles and like you're going up, you're going down, you're going like you're hitting like rocks, you're just going on like all different terrain. You're on sand, you're on. It just builds like this durability and strength that you can't get like running on the road or running someplace else. So like a lot of times like we just will do like a long run on trails and just go run like 2 hours on like really rocky, like hilly terrain. And like, I mean, I think when I was a runner, there was a coach that used to like basically send people out like hiking. I remember Jack Dan used to send people out hiking and like, that was like their workout was to like just go on this really long hike. But I think it just built up like a aerobic base, but like a lot of durability at the same time. So yeah, so find some trails to go run on, and not like easy trails. I think like the easy trails don't, I mean, yeah, you can run fast on them, but the idea is like, you don't have to run fast to like make a lot of gains. So like going on some like rocky or hilly terrain, yeah, has a lot of benefits. Anyway, any questions on running?
What nutrition do you recommend for like the bike and like just like training in general?
Nutrition stuff?
Yeah.
So, this is a tough one because I feel like everybody is so different on like what works for them. I think you just have to try a lot of things, and it's a lot different too if you're doing like a shorter race or if you're doing a really long race, right? Like what kind of nutrition you're gonna need. I like while you're racing and training, I think you definitely want to think about like how you're going to get in fluid, like a lot of like water and electrolytes, so that you're like replacing all those things. I think those are two super important things. And then the other important thing is like how you're getting in carbs or like those calories. I think mixing it up, trying different things. I personally do use like gels and stuff like that when I'm training, but you can get it through like regular food too. Like you could just make like, there's a really good recipe out there for like these rice bars. Has anyone ever made them? I've never made them, but I bought all the ingredients yesterday.
The lemon ones, Alan Lemon.
I think
rice
so.
bar?
Yeah, and then like Holly Lawrence posted a one about like which ones to make, and basically you just take like sushi rice or like short sticky rice.
yeah.
You just like layer one layer of sticky rice, and then you just, I bought like almond butter and jam to like layer on top of it, and then just layer another layer of rice, and like it's a great like option that's like real food option. I haven't made it, but I have all the ingredients, so I can't attest, but I don't know, try it. But to me it sounds great, like rice, almond butter, and jam, like I don't know how you can go wrong. So yeah, so that's something to eat like real food. I think when you're racing and you're going really hard, eating real food probably isn't as realistic. Like if you're like going as hard as you possibly can, that's when you might want to use like some gels or things like that. But yeah, and some like you can use sport drink too, although like, but I think trying that is really important to see what works, because sometimes certain things and ingredients don't work for different people. I have, for longer races, I did a sweat test with Levelin. I just purchased one on their website. Have you ever done a sweat test? Anyone else done a sweat test with Levelin? Has anyone done a sweat test? Oh yeah.
The precision hydration.
Oh, you did the precision one? I haven't done the precision one. Yeah, I don't know. Was that one good?
Mixed reviews.
Mixed reviews. I thought the Levelin one was actually really good and like pretty accurate. But I did a couple, like two, one on the bike, one on the run, and sent it out. I think like you can probably guess, like there are two things that they're measuring, like how much you sweat, like do you sweat a lot, like are you losing a lot of fluid, and like how salty is your sweat, or like how like of those electrolytes. Those are basically the two things that are getting, the two big categories I would think they're getting measured in a sweat test, at least that I use. Like I probably could have told you before I did it, like I sweat a lot and I'm not a salty sweater, like, and those were basically the things I learned from doing the sweat test. It did give me like a little bit more like dialed in number of like how many grams of sodium I should aim for, like of like an hour when I'm like racing. Ultimately, like I think you have to experiment with that. I use the Fuelin app to like calculate all of that stuff. It like basically you can just like plug in all the nutrition you use and like the grams of carbs and the sodium and everything, and it kind of like, it doesn't tell you like what the right thing is, but then you can kind of like gauge like, oh, for my ride, I did a 5-hour ride and I had 500 milligrams of sodium for an hour and I felt awful, you know, and then you can kind of like gauge next time like what you do based off of that. It was just like a way to like keep track of it like a little bit better. You could just make a spreadsheet too on Excel, and that's a great way to keep track of it also. I do use like Excel spreadsheets for creating my race plan nutrition so that I know exactly like what I'm taking in. I think like knowing what's in your nutrition products is really important. There's so many times I went out there and I like had no clue what was in or like really what I was doing. I just kind of did what like my coach told me to do, and then like if you don't have that nutrition, then you're like in a little bit of a pickle. So I definitely had to like take more ownership of that myself, and then like when I did that, it just became a lot less stressful. Yeah.
Have you ever been, like, if you're racing and you know you're supposed to be taking, let's say, 80 grams of carbs in an hour, but your stomach, and you're like 2 hours into an Ironman ride, a bike ride mid-race, and your stomach just can't handle it, would you keep taking those carbs down even though you know your stomach's not handling it, or would you back off and allow your
No,
body
I
to
would
recover?
back off.
Back off?
That's, I mean, me personally, like if I already am already having stomach issues, I would definitely back off. And like, and I think you have to like look at it like, oh, like did I come out of the water and like maybe like I needed to get some more water in, like I was like dehydrated if I swam in a salty swim and I was dehydrated when I came out, like maybe I didn't get enough water in, like, and now like the osmotic like this stuff is like not working in my stomach, you know, so like let me just get some water on board for the next like 20 minutes, you know. So yeah, no, I would change it up for sure. Like in the back of my head I would kind of have an idea of like how far behind I was, not that you're gonna try to make that up, like, but just so you kind of know like, okay, like where, like, I mean, yeah, that's the goal, but if your stomach's not handling it, your stomach's not handling it, like, can't do anything out about that moment. But like I think if you continue to like bang it back, like it's not gonna get any better. Yeah.
Back to the leveling. Well, what'd you use as a control for the sweat test? So like based on, you know, distance of running, you'd either be a more salty or electrolyte drink beforehand for say a 30-minute run as opposed to say a 2-hour run. So the initial test, what would be like that control of, okay, you know, well, I now have say 1,000 milligrams of sodium in me. You're gonna naturally sweat out more of that than if you took just straight water.
You do enter in like in the sweat test stuff like what you consume like during like during the ride or like if you're like.
So it's like you just like put the patch on. I'm assuming it's like a patch.
Yep.
It's like you just put the patch on and you went out for a run.
Yep.
You know, like I had 2 slices of pizza and I went for a run. I put it on now would be a lot different than if I carb loaded the whole morning.
Yeah.
Drank a bunch of water or electrolytes and then went for my run an hour later.
Yeah, I think like if you just do it like first thing in the day, I like just tried to do mine like first thing in the day. So basically like I didn't like have, and just you put in like all the nutrition that you eat, like how much, and you like weigh like before, weigh after, like, and you just add in like how much you drink during. They don't necessarily go into too much like what you did before, and this is probably part of the variables of like why they're all like not.
Yeah.
They're never 100%, you know. I thought it would like it's a good guideline.
Yeah.
Right. You know, like I wouldn't swear by it. It's not like I look at that number and I'm like, that's what I have to have. You know.
Because I was on 2 sprints last year, and after the first one, all I did was cramp, and it was based on lack of hydration and nutrition.
Yeah.
Second time around, I made sure I had everything I needed because I knew what I needed or what I wanted to have.
Yeah.
And it was an absolute game changer.
Totally. Yeah, and I think that, and a lot of it, like, I think you can figure out on your own. You know what I mean? Like, I think, like, if you're in, like, the conundrum of, like, oh, I've done a whole bunch, or, like, or if you're doing like a longer distance one where you're like, I want to have, like, you don't get the feedback right away until like it's too late in the race where you need the feedback, like you might want to make sure you're dealing with it like up front more. But yeah, I think for a lot of people, like just knowing, like you kind of just might take water or something like that and not realize like, oh, I actually need to take in sodium, or you know. Yeah, and I think if you don't know if you're a salty sweater or not, or like how to figure that out like on your own, I mean, like it's easy way, it's just like if you have salt on your clothes when you're done exercising, you know, like I can exercise and sweat a ton and have not a drop of salt on me, like, so I know I'm not like sweating out a lot of salt, whereas like other people will have salt marks all over them. So I think like that could just tell you right there, like, do I need 250 milligrams of sodium or do I need 750 milligrams, you know? So yeah, but yeah, and that's, so I think the puzzles to that piece, like the pieces to that puzzle are so individual for sure. Like everyone's different. I know for me, I took a lot of products early on that had a lot of sodium that I wasn't needing, and I would just race and be like, I'm so thirsty, I just want to drink water. And I was told like, never drink water, only drink sport drink. That was like the mottos of like what I was told in the beginning, and I was just like keep pounding back sport drink, and I'd just be like, oh my god, can someone just give me water, I'm so thirsty. But probably because I was consuming way too much sodium for like my personal self, that like, yeah, so.
There's almost like a point where it's like counterproductive.
Exactly, yeah. So I think like, and you had the same opposite experience where you didn't have enough sodium, right? And then you're like cramping. So I think like everyone's experience can be like very different. And then there have been times where once I knew I was like a salty sweater, then I started drinking like a lot of water, and then like I got on the run and I was like, oh my god, like I got a lot of cramps, you know? And then but you like kind of knowing those signs too, and you're like, okay, well I can actually like remedy that a little bit, like I'm gonna start taking salt, you know? So like you can come around from those things, like if you know like the signs of them too. You're just like a bit of like, a lot of it's just a learning experience for sure. So, yeah. Yeah, any questions? Anyone else have any other questions on it? I can keep going through some of the stuff here.
You like the Fueling app? You hesitated.
I use the Fueling app, and
It's all I need to know.
It's not that I didn't like it. It's too much information for me. Like, it was really like you could log all your food, like, and I was just like became like obsessed with like logging everything and like trying to get like this macronutrient and match to that macronutrient, and it was just like, no, I just need to like eat dinner. Like, so I think sometimes it can become overkill, like, and it's not what you need. Like for some people it might be like a great tool and they might love it, like that might be what they love to do, but like I don't love to do that. I don't want to measure my food, I don't want to have, and I just want to like.
So that'd be more like a lifestyle app as opposed to like race prep?
Yeah, I mean, there's some stuff I love about it. Like I love the fact that I can log all the nutrition I did like on a long ride, and then it would just like, it would just pop the like formula like back out to me, you know, of like how much sodium and how many carbs I had an hour, like at the end of the ride, like how much like, and how much weight I lost. Like, I mean, those things were like super nice to have, you know, to know, like, and I also liked the like carb load. I could put everything in for the carb load the day before, and I had a really good idea, like, oh, I hit my benchmark on the carb load the day before, or I didn't, you know. So some of that stuff was really nice, but like the daily logging was just like not my. I think I learned a few things, like I did start eating like more carbs using it, but like I think I learned a little more balance in my macronutrients, but it just like wasn't for me in like a daily like lifestyle thing, like didn't click in my life. Like it wasn't enjoyable for me at some point. It became stressful and like non-productive, like almost unhealthy, you know. So yeah, so I think, but like I said, for some people it could be great, and like there are pieces of it that I'll still use. Like if I go for a long ride and I'm like I'm racing Kona this year, and like probably in the summer I'll start logging like on my long rides all of like my nutrition back into the app again, and just so I can see that, and practice some like carb loading like with the app, and use like just so I have an idea of like those key pieces, but otherwise the daily piece I wouldn't use. But yeah, it's not a bad, like, yeah, it has some valuable things, so if that helps. stops. Yeah, any other questions? Alright, I'll keep going here. This scheduling, I think we kind of talked about some of this. Like, we talked about, like, having, like, a plan B or a C, like, is better than nothing. Like, I mean, changing your workout isn't always a bad thing. I think that was one of the pressures for me that I decided to start coaching myself, was that I just felt like this pressure of, like, this box and no coach, this is not, like, what any coach ever thinks. Like, I think coaches are always, like, expecting you to, like, adjust things in the moment, but, like, me personally, like, it wasn't something that, like, I could do. I was like, either I check the box and I do it the way I'm supposed to do, or like I didn't. But for me, like, I couldn't find it in between. But when I'm like working by myself, it's like a lot easier to be like, oh, no, I can just flip that around or change that, or like that's not gonna work today. So, but I feel like I'm motivated enough on my own to like still get the work done. So, yeah, but I think like having another plan and knowing that like if you deviate from what was originally on the schedule, it's totally fine, and like any coach is gonna like want that over like forcing a workout that like just wasn't meant to be that day, right, coaches? Right? Yeah. Oh, good. That's what I thought. Those guys will tell you. I think like scheduling is always a challenge, like with like fitting everything in with like life and work. I mean, just communicating with your family and like so you can get everything in. Not that like no one's a mind reader and they're not gonna know like, oh, I have a bike workout I need to get in, or it's like when can I get it in and when works best for the family kind of thing. Yeah. Oh, don't try to make. Oh, this is called do as I say, not as I do. Don't try to make up missed workouts. I'm a queen of trying to make up missed workouts, and it never works out. I can guarantee you, it's a very bad idea. So don't try to make up missed ones. Like it's gone. Just readjust. Like what's ahead? You might like maybe be like, oh well, I didn't ride hard today, but maybe I'll like readjust what's on the schedule tomorrow. But you don't have to like necessarily make up what you just missed. Like, yeah. So don't do that. Let's see. Some mindset stuff. Yeah, I think one of the things that I was told at the time was the win thing. What's important now? I think when you're racing or just training, like it's really helpful to think about like what's important in that moment and not like get ahead of yourself or think about something that happened already. Like it's kind of like responding to like what's happening at that time, as opposed to being like, well, I was taking 80 grams of carbs an hour and I'm supposed to be taking 80 grams of carbs an hour, so that's what I'm gonna do for every hour. It's like, oh, I'm taking 80 grams, but my stomach is like absolutely on the rivets, so I'm gonna respond to that. I'm gonna like look at my clock, 10 minutes, I'm gonna like take in just water, like see if I can get things to settle. I might take a little sodium, you know, I'll go 10 more minutes, 20 minutes, see what's going on, you know, like, so it's kind of like what's important in that moment, and in that moment, the important thing is like getting rid of the cramps I have, like not getting in 80 grams of carbs kind of thing. So I think responding to like what you feel in that moment is always like head and shoulders above necessarily what the plan is supposed to be, because it never goes according to plan. Yeah, I think, what else here? Oh, I have like keywords on race day. So this has been something I've probably always done, and like every coach I've worked with has always like encouraged this, and I've always found it helpful. It's like for each section of the race, I typically have like a keyword or like focus phrase or something for like the swim, bike, run, and maybe just like for the day overall. So those are definitely like personal to you and like what motivates and keeps you focused. But yeah, I think it's a good way to like remind yourself of what's important in that moment too, is by having those keywords. It's always something to like refocus on that's like positive and pushing you in the right direction as opposed to not. Yeah. Any questions on that mindset stuff?
I kind of have.
Oh yeah.
What do you recommend age group athletes and athletes in general come up with as far as like goals for a race? Like you have Kona, like do you have, this is like, this would be a good day, this would be an amazing day, this would still be a decent day. Do you have like 3 different, outcomes? Is one like a dream goal? Like, do you have numbers in your mind, or do you have places, or something like that?
Yeah, like I think we'd be cool. Like I mean, it would be great if I could go someplace and not have an outcome goal in some ways, But like I do, like I have outcome goals for sure, And I think that's like only natural, like to want to have an outcome goal. It's when that outcome goal is like all that you focus on that I think becomes the problem. So like when I'm planning for a race, I definitely I will have like maybe like a place goal in mind for sure. But you have, like you said, you have like, here's the A goal. Yeah, I'd love to like be top 10 for sure, But then it's like, oh, well, last time I finished 20th, so like hopefully I can just do better than last time, And
But,
then
like,
it's like, well, maybe I just need to finish today, Like, I mean, and that's like an option too. Like, I think people like
as long as you execute and you stay positive and you're still strong near the end, you felt like you left it all
Yeah.
out, well, that's great, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think there's like that's why
can't
we keep
control.
coming back to the races too, is because like you have all these outcome goals and like hitting them all is probably like it is way harder than like what we think. So, but having that perfect like elusive day may never happen, but getting closer to it is always a carrot in front of you. So. Yeah, I definitely have the outcome goals, but like the process goals and like having those things, the keywords that I'm focusing on, or just like, for example, if I'm swimming, like a technical like piece that I'm working on, like driving with my hips or something, just things like that. I mean, those keep me more focused in the moment. But yeah, the outcomes kind of will be just what they will be based upon those things for sure.
Did you ever have, because you've won Ironman,
I have, yes.
have you ever had a race that you didn't win that was better than one you won? That you would say that was the best race I ever had, even though I didn't win?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm trying to think. I think with triathlon, I could say that in running, for sure. So I've won running races, and I've had running races where I haven't won, and I've been like, that was like the best executed marathon like I could do. Like I was fulfilled by that performance, but like I didn't win, But I feel like I've yet in triathlon to feel like I've had, that's probably why I'm still doing it, a race where I'm like, wow, I like executed really well throughout the race. And I feel like I put the pieces for like all 3 things together. I feel like something's always fallen apart. Like in all honesty, so yeah.
To follow Mike's question, what would you say was your best race of your whole, if you had to put one, or best
North American
best
champ,
Ironman?
that's pretty good.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Yes.
I did win the North American champs in 2017, but I feel like I ran, I think I ran a 3:06 or something like that, which for me, like the year before I ran a 2:59, so knowing like that I ran a 2:59 the year before and I like ran like 7 minutes slower was kind of like, it wasn't a good run day for me at all. Like, so yes, I think that's like the whole like pieces of like I didn't put it together like the best that I could, for sure.
You said you were like place focused, like one race you took 20th and you're trying to do better.
Yeah.
But if you shaved 7 minutes off of that and you still took 20th, would you say that would be a better race even though you still placed the same?
I actually think in triathlon the times are like totally meaningless. They like actually mean nothing to me. Like I couldn't tell
that was
you.
in front
The
of you.
run seems to.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, but like I like feel like the overall I couldn't tell you a finish time for a single Ironman
You
that
just
I've
know what
done.
place you took.
Yeah, I know what place I took. Like I know, like I probably know my run times, but I feel like running is a little bit more accurate than like you swim and the conditions are so
Current.
like, I mean, how do you know like
Always
one?
gonna be in different places.
Yeah, and like one different kinds of water. Like even if you swim the same exact loop, it's like one day it's like crazy choppy, and the next day it's like flat as glass. Like how can I compare A to B? I can't. And then like cycling, like same thing. Like the courses in triathlon are the most inaccurate things you've ever experienced. Like don't expect the bike course because it's so long. Like, and I think it's very realistic to like understand why they're inaccurate, like, but how can you create like 112-mile bike course and that's like exactly the same course it was last year, like with all of like restrictions and road conditions, and I mean I don't even know half of it, so I completely understand, but and then the conditions between wind and the technology on bikes, and I've had fast times on bikes and slow times on bikes, and like, I mean, I've had
Your
course
race also
records.
depends upon what's happening.
Yeah.
Like when you and Ryan race pro, or when you guys race at your elite level, like for most of us, when we race, we're trying to pace ourselves as best we can to do the fastest time. But like you, sometimes if you don't ride too hard on the bike, the race might be up the road.
Yeah,
You have to catch the people who swam faster.
Exactly.
And sometimes that takes it out of you for the run.
Totally, yeah, and I mean, if I'm like riding like hard, like I'm always behind out of the water, which is reality, and I like coming from behind, so it's all good. It's a mentality I've embraced. Yeah, like I mean, I'm always riding hard, you know. So, and it's kind of finding, like for me, it's probably a big like, how fast can I get on the swim? But then it's like, how hard can I ride but still run well off of, which I haven't really found yet. Like, where's that balance of like, or like, I want to be able to ride X hard but still run well. Like, how do I create that in my, like, for me personally, you know? But like, yeah, time-wise, it's so hard to compare. Like, I think you can compare the run times a little bit better. The courses are a little bit more condensed and like probably like similar from one year to the next. Whereas like, I feel like that's not necessarily the same.
With running as your strong suit, would you favor yourself to get to that point? Basically just get out of the water, get off the bike, and just tie your shoes and start running.
Yeah, I favor myself to get on land.
Yeah. This makes sense.
Yeah, I do feel like that I've sometimes like my cycling's been stronger than my running for sure. Like even I'd say like lately even more so. Like I've had fastest bike splits but not fastest run splits. So yeah.
So you were saying as you're more focused on like placing or your position as opposed to what your times are and stuff like that?
Yeah.
So when you're racing, do you have, I mean, like I know you said the plan is good to have and think about and it can change while you're racing, but when you go into it, do you have a plan going into it? And then as you're racing, are you looking at the person ahead of you like, I want to get to that person, or are you're gauging yourself more off of the plan and the time that you want to do on the bike or the run or the swim going into it, or are you thinking like, let me see where I am today and I'm going to start picking people off and that's how I want to race?
I like initially my plan on the bike is always I use a power meter and I will want to hit a set watts.
Okay.
So that's always like my initial plan, like that's plan A, is like hit X watts on the bike. And then there's definitely a dynamic that goes into that. Like if you're riding with people, if you're not riding with people, you have to be able to like respond to that. Or if you're like riding solo, it's like, okay, hit X watts, and then at some point it's like, oh, I'm struggling to hit those watts. Oh, let's just see how many people I can catch, you know? Or not let anyone catch me, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, so I think you have to like, yeah, like the same thing, have like multiple plans in order, because one probably won't work the whole time. And then like running, I feel like I always have like a set pace in mind of like what I'm gonna do. But again, I think by the end of the run, I have never been able to like continue on that pace. It's always like been resorted to catch the person in front of you, don't let the person behind you catch you, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think, like, and not that like you have to have only one thing you stick to, like during a race.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a question about the actual racing, because when you're watching the broadcast and whatnot for Ironman or T100, you'll hear saying the athletes get the splits. How do you actually get the splits when you're in top 1, 2, or 3? Like is it like the moto next to you or like the bike when you're running?
No,
like
I've never gotten a split from anybody.
They don't give you splits?
No.
Because like I remember watching like your when you were racing toward the end, the person was like, yeah, I'm sure she's getting splits right now. And I'm like, how do they get the splits?
No one gave me splits. And then like my parents are like my biggest fans. Like I adore them. Okay, but they don't know like how to give me a split. Okay, or like they don't like.
You're doing
it's
great.
Like, it's not accurate. So my parents will be like, "You're here," and I'm just like, "Okay, thanks for like something." I like appreciate the cheers, you know. And like for Coeur d'Alene, for example, like my parents were the only ones there, and I was just like, I have no idea, but like it did loop back on itself like the course of it, so you could kind of gauge like.
Because like I distinctly remember watching you were running, at this point you were closing on Haley Chura.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, I'm sure she's getting splits on how
No,
far
I
she is.
had no clue, and I just turned a corner and I was like, holy smokes, wow, she fell off, you know, like, that's it, yeah. So I think, yeah, no, nobody, yeah, they don't give you any help, like the motos or anyone like that, nobody. No,
Okay.
they have never shared, I mean, I don't know, maybe I don't talk to them enough, I have no idea, they've never shared any information with me, so, yeah.
Interesting, alright.
Yeah, and I don't know, I think like, the cyclists that are with you will sometimes share like random stuff with you, but they're technically not supposed to either. So,
Okay.
I think they're like, really not supposed to tell you, but sometimes they like, will say something. Yeah.
How does it feel when you're solo, there's nobody around you, and then the motorbike is coming up next to you?
I must be racing well if
Yeah.
the motorbike's
Well, yeah. Well, what
here.
is-
That's it.
Well, what does that do? Does
And
that-
if they leave quick, you know you aren't racing well anymore. They were just doing a quick drive-by.
Does that kind of pump you up, and or do you stay on your pace, or it depends?
I think like it doesn't. I think I'm like focused. I don't get caught up in the moment. Like
Okay.
no, I'm like definitely like focused on like what I'm doing. But you definitely in your brain are like, oh well, if the moto's here, like they have actually started trying to like get a little video of like more people. So it's not always the most accurate anymore because now they like drive by everybody and like take a little snippet of everyone. I think when they're going by. But if they hang out for a while, you know you're in good terms. So that's it. We just hope the moto hangs for a little while.
I'm sure you've heard, like how sometimes the people like who typically come out of the water behind or get annoyed that the motos are even there in the front of the race because they can provide some type of benefit sometimes. Do you ever feel that way when you're racing? Like, do you ever?
It's out of
say
my
to yourself-
control. I can't
Yeah.
worry about that.
Okay.
If I like, I mean, those are things that I can't control in the race dynamic.
And then-
so
and then do you
that's like
feel
a
that?
lot of energy I'm not wasting there.
And then do you ever feel like if the moto's with you, do you ever feel that added?
No,
Um,
I've never felt they're pretty good at like staying behind.
But even like mental boost, do you feel like, hey, this is?
Oh, I mean, like, yeah, if they hang around for a while, you do definitely try to gain a little confidence. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I must be in a good spot. You know? like, yeah.
Anyone
But-
you like to beat more than someone else?
What happened?
Anyone you enjoy beating more than anyone else?
Oh.
You don't have to tell us who it is.
I definitely have a few training partners. Like, not like they weren't like just training. I don't know if I'd call them partners. Just like people that had the same coaches I did that I went to training camps with, and that I'm really happy to beat sometimes. Yeah. People I've trained alongside that maybe you don't like their training tactics. That like you're happy to like finish ahead of them. Yeah, huh? There is a few motivators out there. That was a good one. So, all right. I think like if you've asked a question, I didn't hand any of this stuff out. Who asked a question? Come on up and get a T-shirt if you asked a question.
Frank, you take 2X.
Here, I don't know what sizes they are. There are QR T-shirts. There are some Robertson racing T-shirts. Look at the sizes and pick what sizes you want. These are small. These are small. I'm trusting you guys to question. This is an XL.
Facial hair related questions for you guys?
It ain't going nowhere. You ain't gotta worry about it.
Did you order the bike?
This is a large. These
They
are
ordered two.
large.
Each one of them.
Black.
Yeah. Not in your color.
One
One black and one red.
My size, I think.
Oh, the red looks sharp too.
Alright.
It's a nice bike.
Medium, I don't know. Hang on, look around and see what
Yeah.
that one is.
Yeah.
I think those are larges, yes, look and see. Here's a medium.
Oh, Frank, just your size.
John, you asked the
Medium?
question in the beginning, come on, yeah, you
They have
asked the
small
question.
screw.
They're giving you a little stick.
My favorite race.
Cool.
You know I really love it.
You should get a bike to match.
Like,
One? Oh, I have one. I have one. I have three.
it was like,
I have five. I have one for every day.
I love that one.